This is Matthew Lyman, the host of the Landlord Advocates. Joining me today is Assemblyman Bill Stack, who represents the 110th Assembly District in New York State. Mr. Stack, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
The question that we would like to ask you is regarding good cause eviction.
Right.
Under good cause eviction, landlords are unable to raise rent more than 3%.
Right.
And they must have a reason to evict a tenant other than non-payment of rent.
Right.
Many landlords believe that since they own the property, that should be the only reason why they need to evict the tenant. Most landlords don't want to evict, but when it comes to what they need to, your thoughts, sir?
Well, I've been a landlord, and I've tried to evict tenants for non-payment of rent, and it can be a very time-consuming process and costly, and we understand that. Also, in my apartment, which I ultimately sold, we charge less than market rent. And so if we wanted to bring the rent up to market, I would have exceeded the 3%. So I think there can be, and we encountered this more in New York City, where people are trying to convert what is middle-class housing into luxury housing. They use raising rents to force people out. That's one of the reasons this legislation came into being. But the legislation goes through a whole process, and simply because that's in the law now doesn't mean that's going to be what the law looks like if it passes.
Yeah, we know that they've tried 3 years now, and it never came out like maybe this year. But I know that sponsor Junior Salazar is probably first point on the Senate side, and on your side, it would be Harvey Epstein and the like that were trying to get it passed.
I am an upstate representative. Our landlords are not making gazillions of dollars on giant buildings like they are in New York City.
Absolutely.
We understand that. And certainly, if the law is moving forward, we will try to make it modified to make sure that it doesn't harm upstate interests. We certainly, I don't even believe it should be applied at all in the case of owner-occupied buildings.
I don't think that it is, but I will check on that. As far as the landlord just wanting to remove the tenant from the property, in the legislation now, there is nothing specified as to what that good cause is.
So we've had a little issue once that came up with the Colony Police Department where some landlord wanted to throw some person into the street. May have had the reason to do it. However, in New York, you cannot do that. You have to go to court. And so you got to go to court anyway. So what the law should be about is what are the requirements.
Okay. And right now, as good cause legislation is stalled or in committee, it does not have anything in it other than non-payment of rent as reasons under good cause. There's nothing listed that this is a good cause, that's a good cause.
But again, I think that if the legislation were moving forward, it would most likely come through the Judiciary Committee, which I am on, and we'd have opportunity to raise questions about it and hopefully have a positive influence on it if it were moving forward, which it hasn't.
We testified January 7th in a joint committee of the New York State Senate in opposition of good cause eviction.
Well, I'm aware that the landlords oppose it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So on ERAP,
Yes, ERAP.
so ERAP is something happened with ERAP that should not have happened. What was supposed to happen was that when the ERAP period expired, the tenant was supposed to be evictable. Some judge in the state, somewhere, I think it was downstate, decided that if they had a pending application for ERAP, even if they weren't eligible for ERAP funds, that they would still not be able to be evicted. That is totally wrong. I've raised that issue with the Speaker of the Assembly. Our office has been very active trying to explain that this is an exploitation. But I just did an article myself in the Times Union about how judges often exceed their authority. The judge has to follow the statute as written by the legislature. There's nothing in the statute that says if you have an application, though you're ineligible, you can't be evicted. That was something the judiciary did on its own, and it's wrong. Now, with that, unfortunately, I have another meeting, and I gotta travel almost a half hour.
One more time, do you believe that ERAP should be closed? There's no more money for ERAP?
Correct.
And tenants are filing, and there's no.
Correct.
ERAP should be closed
It was
now.
closed, but
But
the
it was
court misinterpreted
New York
the
County.
law.
New York
Right.
County, so, thank you, Mr. Scott, I
All right,
appreciate it, thank
you're
you very
welcome.
much.
Okay.
That is our interview with Assemblyman Phil Scott. When we asked the Assemblyman regarding the Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act, he did not know what it was. He was unsure what it was. But yet, he co-sponsored this bill, but yet he did not know what it was about. We wanted to ask Mr. Scott that why is it that landlords are not allowed to review public or private documents related to the past or current eviction history of tenants? We wanted to ask him that. Whether he was familiar or not with the bill that he co-sponsored does not need to be known. That's a question that anybody could answer, whether they're familiar with the history of 2019 or not. The other aspect that we wanted to ask him about that act is that why is it that a tenant can move other people in, and then when the landlord moves to evict the tenant that they put in, they're not allowed to do so when the other people that have taken up residence in that dwelling. And that should not be, and that is also a part of a bill that he co-sponsored that he was completely unaware of. That's scary. This is a bill that has had a tremendous negative effect on the real estate industry all across New York State. He co-sponsored the bill, and he was unfamiliar with it. We did ask him, will we be able to conduct an interview with him later on regarding the Housing Stability and Tenant Protection. And he asked that our office gets a hold of his office to arrange an interview. And that is what we will do. Hopefully, he will answer those questions as well. And why he supported such an oppressive piece of legislation that have harmed landlords, housing providers, and those in the real estate industry to the tune of millions of dollars across New York State. Stay tuned for that interview. This is Matthew Lyman from the Landlord Advocates. Have a good day.